Greetings and shalom to my brothers and sisters in Master Yeshua the Messiah, who have his testimony and guard his commandments. Brother Nick here, and today's the 13th day of the third month on the official Enoch solar calendar that I publish. It is June 1st, 2022, and this video is being recorded from Cairo, Egypt. This video is about Shavuot 2022, which is coming up on June 3rd in just 2 days from now. And I apologize about getting this out a little bit late, but just how it came out this time. This video is about Shavuot 2022, and it possibly being the 1335th day, possibly. It's possibly the time of life of the man-child, possibly this rapture, this to the throne. We'll see what that is about. Also, possibly the beginning of sorrows. Also in this video, I'm going to share some information about Shavuot in the book of Acts that most are not aware of, that actually more went on that day other than 3,000 being saved. I'm going to be taking a look at that as well. So here is my biblical anniversary spreadsheet with the biblical memorials on them. I took the official Enoch calendar. I went through all of the Torah, the Tanakh, the New Testament writings, also Jubilees and Enoch, and I put, and Dead Sea Scrolls, and I put all the memorials that I could find on this calendar to give an idea of the memorials that happen. And there are a lot of significant things that happen on the 15th day of the third month. I know that we're only a couple of days away from Shavuot. I've also done several videos in the past that are still relevant regarding Shavuot. So you should look up my playlist or look up my videos on my channel if you want, if you've been missing some information, but I got this for you today. So we know that Shavuot's on the 15th day of the third month because the Dead Sea Scrolls pegs Shavuot to the 15th day of the third month, specifically Dead Sea Scroll fragment 4Q394. And that would mean, if you count backwards 50 days, that means that the Barley Festival is on the 26th day of the first month, which the Dead Sea Scrolls also peg that to the date. So the Bikurim, the barley wave sheaf, is pegged in Dead Sea Scroll fragment 4Q325. So it pegs the barley wave sheaf, the first fruits of the Barley Festival, to the 26th day of the first month. Okay? So we have dates for these, and that's why you might be saying, well, tomorrow's not the first day of the week. Actually, it is on the official Enoch calendar, because the official Enoch calendar does not use false Gregorian days of the week. Instead, the official Enoch calendar uses the sun to calibrate the set calendar to heaven. So we go by the day count in heaven. Okay, and that's how we do it, which means that the sun calibrates the days of the week. The spring equinox, the day after the spring equinox, calibrates the calendar to the fourth day of the week, the day the sun, moon, and stars were created and time began to be counted or reckoned on the calendar. So with that out the way, the 15th day of the third month is always Shavuot. And it's a twofold festival that you can read about in the book of Jubilees. It's the festival of covenants, and it's also the first fruits festival of the wheat harvest. A lot happened on this day. This is Noah's covenant to not eat blood on this day, Jubilees 6, verse 17. Abram, in the middle of the month at Mamre, built an altar and sacrificed the animals as Yahweh instructed him. El Shaddai instructed him. And Yahweh confirmed the covenant and passed through the animals as a flame, possibly on this day, according to Jubilees chapter 9. Abram also offered first fruit offerings on this day. And Abram was celebrating the feast of the first fruits of Yahweh. And Yahweh appeared to Abraham a second time as El Shaddai and makes another, or renews the covenant with Abraham in Jubilees chapter 15. Abraham's name changed to Abraham on this day, the covenant of circumcision given to Abraham on this day, the promise of Isaac made to Abraham in Jubilees chapter 15 and also Genesis 18. Now, it doesn't give us the date that's Genesis 18, but in Jubilees, it gives us the date as it being the 15th day of the third month. So Sarai's name was changed to Sarah on this day. And also in Jubilees 15, Isaac was promised to be born in these days next year, quote, at the time of life. And that's why this is called the time of life rapture or something like this. At the time of life, it was promised that Isaac would be born in these days next year at the time of life. And in Jubilee 16, Sarah gives birth to Isaac on the 15th day of the third month at the time of life. So this is a time of life. Abraham blesses Jacob and died in Jubilees chapter 22 on this day. Jacob made a feast for Laban and made a covenant with him. Jubilees chapter 29, possibly. Judah, which means praise to Yah, praise to Yah, named and circumcised by Jacob on this day, on Jubilees chapter 28. Israel, Jacob, celebrated the first fruits with old grain. So he didn't have new grain because there was a drought. And that's in Jubilees chapter 44. The Israelites arrived at Mount Sinai on this day, Exodus 19. And this is day one. Moses instructed the Israelites to sanctify themselves and wash their garments because Yahweh was going to appear on the third day. So if the first day of the 15th day of the first month is the first day of the week, that means that Yahweh appeared to them on the 17th day of the third month at Sinai, Jabal Machwa in Saudi Arabia. And then also Tobit. Okay, so here's another book that I pulled some information from. Tobit, righteous man, he celebrated this day and sought out brethren mindful of Yahweh to celebrate the feast with. But instead, he ended up finding some dead bodies and buried the dead and mourned for the dead and had his celebratory meal that night. Okay, that's Tobit chapter 2. And the apostles gathered together in Jerusalem on this day, and they received the Ruach HaKodesh, it appears, at 9 a.m. about. And then Peter preached, and about 3,000 souls repented and believed. And then also Peter prophesied during that preaching. He quoted Joel in the day of Yahweh about this day, but he stopped partway through Joel, and he stopped partway through that prophecy of quoting Joel, because it says that for in Mount Zion shall be deliverance, and then it continues on. So it's interesting. Could things kind of start and pick up on this date in the future? Not saying the final 3.5 will be, but this is something to consider, okay? And then Paul had a prayer, and there's more to the story of Acts than that. It just doesn't stop there, and I'm going to go ahead and hopefully have time in this video to share that with you, which is pretty interesting because we only think that that's where that day stopped. But really, there's an interlude that the authors put in Acts, which kind of breaks up the day, and you don't really see it until you really try to trace and read it carefully what's going on that day. Then, and in the context of that day. So I'm going to share with you those two interludes in the book of Acts that kind of break up the day, kind of confuses the reader a little bit if you're not paying attention, or at least it's hidden from most people, and I'm going to share that with you. Also, Paul made it a priority to get back to Jerusalem to celebrate Shavuot. And then lastly, Messiah Yeshua, after Shavuot, I believe, this is when it happened, sometime right after Shavuot, as he was going back up to the Galilee region, Yeshua declared, he made a prophecy possibly, that the fields are white and ready for harvest 4 months early. And we know that the harvest festival is the festival of Sukkot, the festival of the ingathering, which starts on the 15th day of the 7th month. So if you take the 15th day of the 7th month and subtract 4 months early, it brings you there to the 15th day of the 3rd month. So that is something to consider, Messiah Yeshua's prophecy of John chapter 4, verse 35. So with that being said, there's a lot that happened on Shavuot. I've done several videos about time of life rapture. I've done several videos about this, and those things that I shared, even though the things didn't happen at that time, remember those videos, the information in the videos, it's still relative, even though these events haven't happened and we are all waiting for things to kind of happen. So here is a screenshot of my videos of the last year. I haven't put out a lot of videos lately in this last year. My production has been down, but some videos are a little bit longer. I got a 2-hour video here, a 50-minute video here, another hour video here, 45-minute video here, 45-minute video here. There's some heavy stuff in here, and I'm not sure everybody's picking up what I'm putting down. But there's a lot of information that's very important, very heavy lifting, very important things, and again, a lot of important stuff. So for instance, the 70th Jubilee here, this whole series right here, these 3 videos where I narrowed it in to trying to locate the 70th Jubilee, either 2024, Yom Kippur 2024, or Yom Kippur 2025. My last video, I was almost certain contingent upon the Julian Gregorian year of 2022 being an accurate year, and history being dated correctly applied to the Babylonian chronicle that talks about Nebuchadnezzar coming in and capturing Jerusalem the first time. If that information is dated correctly and everything else, then 2020, Yom Kippur 2025 could very well and is likely the next Jubilee, which is the 70th Jubilee for the true Israelites when they came into the land in 1406 BC, and which is new chronology based, and also that also syncs up with the 120th Jubilee since Adam. So you have the 120th Jubilee, which is of mankind, of Adam, of man, and then you have the 70th Jubilee of the Israelites. So there is a lot going on here. And as I explained in this video, Daniel's 70th week, Elijah, Messiah the Prince, that also the 10 Jubilees of Daniel's prophecy, or the 490 years from the call to restore and rebuild Jerusalem of Sultan Suleiman of the Ottoman Empire in 1535 or 1534 AD. If you count that syncs up on this timeline here of a 2025 Yom Kippur Jubilee. So I've come really close. Now in this video, it looked like the 3.5 years happens before the 70th Jubilee year comes, but I also want right now to mention that the Israelites entered into the land of Canaan. They crossed the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month, not the 10th day of the 7th month. And when they crossed the Jordan, it was during the Jubilee year. We know this because when they went to capture Jericho, their first battle of capturing and getting the land back, all the priests had horns, and those horns were Yobel horns or Jubilee horns. And so it was the year of Jubilee that year. Now, could the Jubilee horn, we don't fully understand the Jubilee. There's not tons of information that but there is stuff that we have to discern. We know from Leviticus 25 that the Jubilee horn is blown on Yom Kippur, which is the 10th day of the 7th month. Now, that would alert everybody that this year's the Jubilee. Do people get their land back that day? Maybe not. Because maybe if we go back to Joshua, which is one of the few recorded Jubilees in the scriptures and in the prophet, it was the first Jubilee of the Israelites, and it was also the first recorded Jubilee in the Torah. There's just maybe a couple of other Jubilees recorded throughout in the prophets and whatnot that we can discern. Ezekiel chapter 40 verse 1 being the most important because it pegs the Jubilee year to the destruction, the Babylonian destruction of Jerusalem, and then the captivity that happened before. You need to be watching these videos if you haven't watched them. But what I'm going with this at is, could the Jubilee horn that's blown on the 10th day of the 7th month be a indicator to everybody that this is the year of Jubilee? But we also know, as I've shared in this video, that the year of Jubilee is also the year of vengeance. It's also the year of vengeance that's prophesied by Isaiah, and it's a year of vengeance. So if it starts here on the 10th day of the 7th month, it could be fulfilled throughout that year, that last year. And that last part could be the last part of the 3.5-year period. So the 3.5-year period could start this fall and extend all the way to the 10th day of the first month, or up to second Passover during that year. We don't really fully understand. We won't know for certain. Yahweh's ways are so concealed. But getting back to the theme of Jubilee, of blowing the trumpet on the 10th day of the 7th month, that would give people, everybody would already know that it's the Jubilee year, but by the 10th day of the first month, maybe that's when the slaves possibly go free. That's possibly when, or maybe it's at the beginning of the year. I don't fully understand. Or that's when you get the property back. We don't fully know. And this is the best speculation that I have to continue on with this understanding and the strong possibility that the next Jubilee is Yom Kippur 2025. So take a look at that. But it also could be Yom Kippur 2024. But again, it's somewhere in that time period. So I will revisit that. But watching these videos is very important that you do. So what's important in this video right here and in these videos is that I proved in this video that the last Shemitah, the last 7 years, if all of this information is correct, that Sultan Suleiman started at 4, made the decree that Sultan Suleiman made the decree in 1535 BC, that means that if of those 490 years, the last 7 years would have started, or the 483rd year would have been ended in Yom Teruah 2018, which means that we are now in the last 7 years of that Shemitah cycle. And then you have the following year is the 70th Jubilee, and that is a year period of Yahweh's vengeance. As I mentioned in here, that Isaiah quotes it and says that it's a year of recompense and it's a year of vengeance. So we can imagine that it could take a space of a year, or it could be partial of a year of that last time period of the 3.5-year period. So it can carry over into that. So that is something to understand that happened that's very important right now to understand the likely possibility that the final 7 years started in Yom Teruah, first day of the 7th month, 2018, right here. So in this video, Yom Teruah happened 2018. Again, you need to watch these 3 videos if you haven't done it, and then watch and refresh with this video that ties into this, because this video is so significant. Because if Yom Teruah happened, if the final 7 years started, that final 7-year count started in Yom Teruah, first day of the 7th month, 2018, then we need to add 1,335 days. Now, why I'm pointing to this video right here is because a year ago, I was under the assumption, before I understood and likely and possibly restored the 70th Jubilee, the Jubilee count cycle, I should say, before I restored the Jubilee count cycle, and before I presented this information on and went back and recorrected myself here, I had already previously, 6 months before coming to this understanding, produced a video and published a video. I was understanding that Yom Teruah 2017 was the beginning, and that's when you add the 1,335 prophetic days to Yom Teruah 2017. But I was incorrect. So there is a possibility that we should add the 1,335 days to Yom Teruah 2018, and that would bring us to Shavuot 2022, which is June 3rd, 2022. So I kept this video up here, and it's a good video because it shows you how to count prophetic days. I had a whole video on counting prophetic days because I demonstrate how to count prophetic days on the 360-day prophetic calendar, which is a variation of the 364-day Enoch solar calendar. And again, you know, so like I said, that's the Daniel's cryptic tweet of Daniel 12:12. Blessed is he who waiteth and cometh to the 1,335th day. So we need to understand on how to do that. So again, I know that I was incorrect in this. I know I was incorrect in my start date of that count, but I do correctly show you how to count prophetic days on a prophetic 360-day calendar, which is a variation of the 364-day calendar. You won't know how to count prophetic days unless you know the true official Enoch calendar, which is 364 days in length, calibrated by the sun. So possibly in a couple of days, we could have the 1,335th day, which would be the time of life, which would be this rapture, maybe this out-of-body experience to the throne, which might also be the 144,000, which might also be the harvest time that Messiah Yeshua prophesied of. And so that's just something to consider. See, I also did a video last year called the Time of Life Rapture, so you can watch this video about Shavuot being the time of life or this escape. The fields are white. The fields are white right now in Cyprus. They're white right now in Israel. They're white right now all in this area. The wheat is ready to start to be harvested and cut down. So that's something to watch. Watch these two videos right here. Watch these three videos. Watch this video if you want. And that explains on how to count the prophetic days and the significance of the time of life. I'll try to link these videos in the description. And interesting to note that with the time of life, when a child is born, the birth pangs precede, the travail precedes the child being born, and then a woman bears the man-child. But we know from Isaiah 66 that the man-child comes before the travail, and then as soon as Zion travails, she brings forth her children, plural. So let's go ahead and take a look at the prophecy of Isaiah 66. Isaiah 66 verse 7, before she travailed, she brought forth. Before her pain came, she was delivered a man-child. Now that pain and these pains that are associated of this travailing is the pains that the world is going to have to go through to get to the next age, to get to the kingdom age. But here we see something very interesting, that before the travail, the woman brings forth the child. So as before she goes into labor, the child is already here. Before that happens, she's already delivered of a man-child. Verse 8 says, who hath heard such a thing? Who hath seen such things? Shall the earth be made to bring forth in one day, or shall a nation be born at once? For as soon as Zion travailed, she brought forth her children. So children is plural. So we see after the travailing, as soon as she travails, she brings forth her children, plural. But before she travailed, before her pain came, she was delivered of a man-child, Zakar, which means a remembered one, like the prophet Zechariah is the remembered one of Yah, and Zechariah's prophecy is about that. And several months ago, when I was in Aswan, Egypt, down there, I did that video about the watchman's trumpet, and I brought up the prophecy, and this has been a common theme of Zechariah chapter 1 and his prophecy of the rider of the red horse. And when he received that prophecy, there was peace. The world was quiet and at rest. There was peace in the world. It was still, which means that there was not world war, because we know that the rider of the red horse carries a great sword in the book of Revelation. And that great sword is the great sword of war, which is going to be the greatest war of all is going to be World War III, which is going to be a nuclear war on this earth. And so right now, the world was at rest, and it was at the time, it was at rest. Now, the world is not at rest and quiet anymore. There's a lot going on in Ukraine. There's a lot going on with Russia versus NATO, Russia versus the U.S., and the world's no longer at rest. It's now actually on edge and watching, who knows what's going to happen. But it's not really calm and at rest like it was during that time period there in the last 20 plus years. So that is something to consider. So the time of life is when the birth pangs come, and the travailing, the birth pangs come, but in this case, the travailing comes after the delivery of the man-child, the remembered one. And the birth pangs are also what Messiah Yeshua prophesied of, this common theme. I've talked about this theme of the birth pangs. It goes through Isaiah. It goes all the way. Messiah Yeshua prophesied of the birth pangs, the sorrows. Isaiah prophesied of the birth pangs and the sorrows, and it goes all the way back to first Enoch prophesying of the travailing and the birth pangs and sorrows. I've done a video on that. So watch these videos. And also, these videos here is where I talk about the watchman's sword and the terror. So there you have it, brothers and sisters. I hope that you're blessed by the information in this video regarding that. There's going to be links to these videos in the description, or just come to my page, click on videos, and you can watch the ones that you want to watch. But these are all right here, important videos right here that are new information, very, 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 very close. The closest I think we could possibly be to understanding when the next Jubilee is and the timeline of these events. And every day closer, every day that comes to pass that events don't happen, or every festival that we're watching, like we watched the Passover, it didn't come to pass. We watched the New Year's, it didn't come to pass. We watched Passover. We watched the big first fruits festival of the barley wave sheaf. Now we're at the wheat harvest. The closer we come, has to come a point where things are going to start, if this 70th Jubilee year be correct, contingent upon the Gregorian year, which is the Julian year of 2022 being correct, and also that historians have accurately dated and reconciled the Babylonian Chronicle, which contains the information of the Babylonian capture of Jerusalem the first time. And because based off of that in Ezekiel 40 verse 1, we know that Jerusalem was destroyed 14 years later. The temple was destroyed 14 years later by the Babylonians, which is happened, and that's important, or 11 years later happened, and 14 years later after that is when the Jubilee year was. So based on that information, this is as close as I think that we can get. I've been looking around on YouTube. There's nothing else that I can present you that's even remotely close as what I have for you. Hallelujah. If it be true, all praise to the name of Yah. Hallelujah. Brothers and sisters, I'm signing off. We got Shavuot coming up. I have my sourdough starter. I'm going to be making a couple of loaves. I'll be celebrating it down here in Egypt. Can't wait till the Messianic age and where we can celebrate it in Jerusalem after all of this stuff comes to pass. Yah willing, we live and we can do that. Also, the resurrection will happen on that 70th Jubilee around that time or during that year. So I'm signing off, brothers and sisters, and shalom to all of you, my brothers and sisters of Master Yeshua the Messiah, who have his testimony and guard his commandments. Shalom to you. Have a blessed Shavuot.